I'm looking at cities and trying to figure out where we are over the Earth, and I can't figure it out. So I tell Ricky, go check the computer to figure out where we are over the Earth so you can recognize something. As soon as he floats away, I see Chicago, and it's got a distinct enough configuration with the lake and everything. I'm like, Ricky, come back, that's Chicago. And then once we knew where we were, we could kind of follow ourselves around. And we looked out the window, and I no kidding thought it was like maybe 10 minutes. I look at my watch, and we were up over 2 hours with our nose in the window. And I realized that now, if the boss sees us up 2 hours late, he is going to freak out. So then we closed the shutter and got in the sleep bag.
And so that was more than one revolution around Earth.
Yes, so we start off, it was nighttime in Chicago. We went out over northern Canada, and my northern Canadian geography at night from space isn't so good, so we got lost there. But then the Atlantic, we could see down the east coast of the United States. Over the Atlantic and then over Central Africa, and it seemed like the entire middle part of the continent was covered in giant thunderstorms. And so we're just watching the lightning flash below us. It would reflect up and strobe in the payload bay. And then, of course, it was sunrise, and then we could see part of Australia as we came around, and then you see one, and you just, and then, of course, the sunset's coming, and so you watch that, and it's just, you just can't, once you put your nose in the window, you're stuck there.
2 questions, Tony. First one is, do you make funny stories about this crew, the 135 crew, nicknames beside Chunky, and also, what is going through your mind while you're being strapped in right now, like the astronauts?
He took the photo.
Chunky has more stories about me than I've got about him, so I'm not about to share any of those. We actually did some, we knew each other, we're in the same class, so we're classmates at NASA, but we knew each other from previous life when we were both doing test pilot work. And we actually flew in an airplane together that was a test airplane and had some equipment that wasn't exactly working right. And so we had interesting dynamics. We were kind of sort of supposed to be taking turns, but I guess neither one of us are that good at taking turns. So we ended up heckling each other for this whole test flight. First it was my turn to heckle him, and then his turn to heckle me. But I'm not going to share any of the really good stories. Fergie was a department head, so I knew Fergie before as well. He was a department head in an F-14 squadron on the same air wing that I was in, a JO and a F-18 squadron. And I remember coming by to debrief Fergie when he came and interviewed for his job. He left an important part of the Navy exercise that we were doing, and I was surprised that you would leave something that we were doing. I remember having a conversation going, you were gone for like a week and a half, and we're here all trying to defend the country. What are you doing? But he explained to me all about the interviewing process. Sandy, we brought home from space on my first flight. She was up on the space station, and we brought her back to Earth, so I think she kind of owes me. But she probably doesn't think that. She was so focused on her chocolate milkshake that I don't even think she even knew who brought her back to Earth. But. And then I didn't know Rex before I got to NASA, but he ran our Spacewalk branch of our office for a little bit. And I don't have any stories on him. And were there 2? I don't even know how many questions. Have we gotten through any of them? What are they thinking? Yeah, so I was saying this on either the walkout or we were standing for waiting for the bus. Somebody asked about what were they thinking on the Airstream ride out to the pad. And I heard Andy Thomas describe it as, hey, it's a time for quiet reflection. You're thinking about what you're about to do from a standpoint of going out there to climb on a rocket, and also thinking about what you're going to do from a work standpoint. Just like Crip had it exactly right. You just don't want to mess up. There's just too many people watching. You'd rather mess up in front of a smaller group. But I think that's kind of individual dependent and also crew dependent. My first flight was kind of like that. My second flight, we were kind of laughing and joking all the way out there. Which kind of not embarrassed me, kind of set me up. I was like, hey, if we're laughing and joking and mess up, it's gonna turn out bad. But we got our work done, so it's okay. So what these guys are thinking is, I'm not really sure. And I definitely remember what I was thinking on the 119 before my first flight, but I'm not sure I'm brave enough to share it with a group with like cameras and microphones and stuff. So I'll have to share that with a smaller crowd.
Thank you.
I have a question submitted via Twitter from @PWT1997. He was at the STS-132 NASA Tweetup for the launch.
Oh, I missed that one.
And his question is, would you have done anything differently on 132 if you had known it was not Atlantis' last flight?
We were, I don't know how to answer on, can you hear me?
Well, somebody will tweet back in response to him.
So I should probably keep it like short. So, no.
What's the one thing you would have done differently?
I'm not sure. So it got out as sort of news. But I'm not sure, like, if everybody knows. Does anybody know what we did on 132 that maybe I wished we wouldn't have done?
Put your names in there. Carve your names in there.
So that's not like a secret, right? If I say that, everybody's there. Okay. So it wasn't not my idea, but
When Bueno was asked whose idea it was, he said that he couldn't remember.
Bueno couldn't remember. So I brought Bueno, I drove Bueno in from Orlando this morning, so if he can't remember, and he's one of the smartest guys I know, so I certainly shouldn't be expected to remember. But you might know about it, but you haven't seen the video.
Does anyone else in the room have questions? Otherwise, I'll ask him another question from online.
So I guess it's the secret's out. Does anybody not know what we're talking about? So a few folks. So it turns out, and actually we did this proper. We put a sticker in the neighborhood, we call them zappers. We put a STS-132 zapper in node 1, and there's a place for it, and we all signed it. We put one in the airlock for the spacewalks that we did, and we all signed it. And since we brought the Russian module MRM-1, Mini Research Module 1 up, and I do know it flew second, but we put a sticker in there and said, hey, this, STS-132 crew brought this, module to space station. So that was all three of those were completely legit. And we're like, hey, we're on a roll here, let's put one on Atlantis. And so we thought, well, it's going to come back and get turned around. We were pretty sure we weren't going to be the last flight even then, even though the press kept wanting us to talk about it as the last flight. We were, of course, hopeful that these guys would fly, and we thought that it might happen. But we put a sticker in what I thought was a pretty good hiding spot, but the guys on the ground thought it was better. What did I miss?
Name badge off.
Oh yeah, so they'll take their name badges to space with them, and then they'll get them when they come back. So all those guys, that's kind of our salute to the closeout crew. We grab all their name tags, fly them in space, and then bring them back. Usually get pictures of them up there somewhere and then bring them back. So we put a sticker on a panel on the top, and so you had to basically float upside down to sign the sticker. And then, of course, they do a very good inspection of the orbiter when you bring it back, and so they've got an inspection mirror, so the guy was standing up looking at a mirror going, hey, what's this? And then he thought it was cool, so he took a picture of his mirror with our sticker in it, and then that went out, and the bosses didn't think it was cool as we thought it was. That's, I think, why I got sent here this morning. I don't know what Crip did to get sent here. That's what we're actually wondering.
So you're saying this is punishment?
No. Absolutely not. This is great. So again, this is a space shuttle launch, so this is a small price to pay.
There's all the weight restrictions and all these things. If you didn't have the practical considerations, what would you want to take out there with you when you're in the shuttle? Like the weight were no consideration.
If weight and space was not a consideration, what would you want to take with you? So the shuttle is only going to be a couple-week mission, give or take a few days. But for living on the space station for 6 months or going somewhere far away, it's actually a really easy question for me, and that's family. If you could pack up your family, and I'd be good. It's nice up there. Of course, I've only been for a couple weeks, so maybe after you're gone for a little bit longer, you might change your tune. But right now, pack up the family, and I'm ready to go.
I was looking at your patches on your arm and the patch behind you. Can you tell us a little bit about how the process is done for these patch designs?
No. Are we we still answering on the phone, or are we? So everyone's different. The crew kind of mostly designs the patch. I'm not much of an artist, and so as the pilot, you kind of get a lot of the jobs on the crew that nobody else wants. But I managed to miss out on the patch job twice. The first time I flew with Steve Swanson, and his daughter is a graphic arts major, and so she wanted to design the patch. And I'm like, oh, all right. So she designed our 119 patch, which I thought was pretty cool. And then Garrett was responsible for this one, and I guess he's not much of an artist either. So he sent an email out to everybody he knew saying, hey, if you ever wanted to design a space shuttle patch, draw it up and send it to me, and then we went through and picked it from there. That's the easy part. Then the hard part is you got to get NASA to approve it. And our sticking point was we put Atlantis on our patch.
Awesome.
Which I don't think anybody else has. Even these guys didn't do, but they had to pay tribute to the whole program. We were wondering if we were going to be Atlantis' last flight, and we wanted to pay tribute to Atlantis. And so we put Atlantis on the patch, and that hung it up in the approval process, because they didn't want to approve it and make a gazillion of them and then have us swap vehicles for some reason and then have to buy a whole other set of patches. And we got really close to giving up. You know, the managers are like, hey, if you take Atlantis off there, we'll approve it today. And we got probably within a week of giving up and just stripping Atlantis off and pressing without it. But we hung in there, and then they finally put it on there.
I've read a couple articles about a lot of pilots and astronauts saying, I want to keep going back to space, and not so much an opportunity. What are you looking to do now, or what are a lot of you looking to do now?
For me, I'm studying Russian, and the line for riding a Soyuz rocket up to the space station and staying for 6 months, it's kind of long to get in that line, and then long once you're in that line. But I'm studying Russian, and going through, it turns out I thought the short duration flight physical that NASA gives you was pretty thorough, invasive even. And it turns out they even had more tricks up their sleeve, and so for the long duration physical they break out some extra medical tests. I think I'm through most of those, maybe one or two more, and so getting through the medical stuff and studying my Russian, I think, and then just waiting my turn. That's what I'm hoping to do.
I've got another question from Twitter from @TedShevlin. He asked, what activities do the commander and pilot do post-launch and pre-landing, i.e. when the mission specialists are at work?
Oh, yeah, so he's got it half right and half completely wrong. So the commander, you know, just like, you know, I'm not sure what movie that came from, It's Good to Be the King. Was that a Mel Brooks movie or something? I'm not necessarily endorsing that one, but it's good to be the king. So the commanders, rightfully so, trying to make sure that there's nothing on their timeline. And of course, as a crew, you know, you'd think that would get you ready to mutiny. But what they disguise it as is, so I want to have my schedule free, so if anybody needs help, I can go help them. It's like, yeah, okay, we won't mutiny today, but we'll think about it again tomorrow. So the commanders do that. Of course, I've never been a commander, so they're bearing the burden of command. Yeah, like, how hard could that be? But the pilot, on the other hand, is the most important member of the crew. So, and the reason I say that is because the pilot is in charge of the most critical systems through all phases of flight. So on launch here, Chunky's responsible for the main engines. The solid rocket boosters he can't do much with, but he monitors them to the extent that he can. He monitors the main engines, and if they need any extra attention or care, hopefully they don't, but if they do, it'll be Chunky's job to get them in the right configuration. He does all the electricity, all the smaller jets, the OMS and the RCS, and also the hydraulic system. So he's got a lot of stuff that he's in charge of, the main engines being the most important. On landing, the commander actually does the flying and does the landing. Chunky will probably get to fly a little bit around the hack, you know, 20 or 30 seconds or so. But Chunky's got the most important job of lowering the landing gear. And so it doesn't matter how pretty of a landing Fergie flies, if Chunky doesn't put the landing gear down, it's not going to turn out well. So Chunky's got the most important part for landing, And then of course on orbit, I think the most important system is pretty obvious. Chunky's responsible for the toilet. And so he's got to keep that up and running. And so I can't think of a more important system. So he's busy taking care of the trash and keeping the toilet clean.
Thank you. Are there any other questions in the room?